People knew me, had respect, they had really good income, especially at the time, multiple six figures. I got to the top of that mountain and I looked around and I was like, damn it, I climbed the wrong mountain.
I know that feeling.
Right? Yeah.
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build $1 billion business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. So please share and enjoy. Hey, we're back with another episode with my buddy Theo Lucier, and this is the third time he's on the show, and there's a reason why I keep bringing him back. He's a crowd favorite. A lot of folks reach out to him, and still to this day from episodes years ago. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to be productive AF without the mental willpower. It's actually not a brain thing, a thinking thing. If we're going through issues, if we're feeling burnout, if we're feeling stressed out, whatever it might be, he explains how it's actually flipped and it's our bodies we should be taking care of. And there's very simple protocols, supplements, vitamins, and other lifestyle changes we can make that will actually help us create energy from the inside out. That's what he talks about. He actually went on this crazy journey of understanding science, understanding himself, because he had catastrophic burnout himself around 40 years old. Right as he was building up a really successful real estate company in San Diego, he chose to quit that for himself, totally pursue a different path. And he talks about that and how he switched that business completely and then had to discover new models that fit what works for him. So I'm going to leave it to him, and make sure to go check out all the resources linked up because he gives a lot and you'll want to go a little deeper here after this episode. Here is Theo Lucier. Theo, you're back for round 3.
I'm here.
Dude, it's been a while, man. I mean, things have changed for both of us in a lot of ways. There's only one of me now,
Yeah. I'm really excited because we've known each other a long time. And when you make changes, especially, a little later in life or after having maturity in one business model and then you step into another, that's kind of what I'm most excited to talk about, as well as, things like how to generate more energy and willpower and stuff and all that.
Well, that's what gave us hints of that years ago when we had you on the podcast. I looked it up. It was like episode 270, or it was 227. And this for anybody who wants to go back, and then 243. And now we're at like 500 and some change. I'm like, okay, we've had some changes.
Yeah, you have. I still have people contact me from that podcast occasionally.
I mean, that's why we brought you back twice in a row pretty quickly after, I remember, because and this was the feedback too, it was like an encyclopedia of knowledge and actionable steps we can take that are not really conventional. But when you start to go down the rabbit hole and research for ourselves, I know I did after the conversations, I was like, oh man, the pieces all start connecting. And now even more so years later. But I guess catch us up, man. Like what has been going on in this gap in time for you? And then we can dig into some of these topics we've been planning around.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So, my backstory, but some of the listeners may not. I was in a previous business that I co-owned for 15 years. And it was multifamily real estate, commercial real estate, basically. I sold apartment buildings. We were vertically integrated. So we did the remodels and the management and maintenance as well, being the broker for them. And I devoted everything I had to that in my 20s and 30s, 45 now. And I went all in. I sacrificed everything. I remember back in the day, doing open houses and stuff on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, watching people walk to the beach. And I'm just sitting there sweating in a shirt and tie, and I was like, no, this is it. This is what I got to do. And when I got to the top of the mountain, I niched down. I used Dan Kennedy marketing principles. That's kind of the marketing system I quote unquote grew up in and niche my business down. And so I was, decent sized fish in a very small niched pond. People knew me and had respect. I had really good income, especially at the time, multiple six figures back then, meant something. Nowadays with the rampant inflation and just funny money everywhere, it doesn't. But I got to the top of that mountain and I looked around and I was like, damn it, I climbed the wrong mountain.
I know that feeling.
Right? Yeah. And, that hit me in my late 30s, early 40s. And it wasn't a midlife crisis thing. We've all had multiple midlife crises. I certainly have. And, I was always able to manage those and adapt. But this one, I couldn't. On a spiritual soul level, I was investing huge amounts of time in doing work that it was not aligned with my soul. And I know that's kind of a little bit of a cheesy way to express it, but literally hurt my soul. I think kind of an easy way to tell if the work you're doing is appropriate for you or not on kind of a spiritual, energetic level is, does it make you tired or does it invigorate you?
Yeah.
Right. And I used to have to use all these tricks to get energy to be able to do the work that I was doing. So I burned myself out on stimulants. I used alcohol to come down from the stimulants. Stimulants, I mean like caffeine, yerba mate, stuff like that. I wasn't running around with a crack pipe, but
I can't see that in you.
probably should have at some point. But because of that, I burned out my endocrine system and I had massive burnout. In fact, the first iteration of my health company that I started afterwards was Burnout Detox. And I did a whole summit around it and all that. Yeah, that was kind of the arc. So I went from being successful in a small little niche real estate market in San Diego. It was very hard to do. I moved here by myself. I had no connections, no outside funding. I didn't go to high school here. I didn't go to college here. I did it all on my own. It took a lot of energy. Got to the top, looked around, and I was like, dang it, I'm on the wrong summit. And I was like, I can't spend the rest of my life doing this. So immediately made some huge changes. I got my health back. My biggest problem was low energy, chronic fatigue and burnout. So I figured out how to reverse those. Long story short, especially those of us who are entrepreneurs or business owners, we blame ourselves. We say we lack willpower. That's why we're burned out. And we try to use these top-down mental models for that. And that is actually backwards. You need to fix the physical foundation, the cellular energy foundation first. That's what generates energy. And the more energy you have, the more willpower you have. And so you want to start with the foundational first. But here in the West, we're taught to go from the top down. So mental. And then went all in on health and internet marketing. And I've had probably a dozen different iterations of that business since then. Yeah. I tried out all these different models. I was trying to figure out what works. Do I do summits? Do I do info products? Do I do coaching? Do I do leverage group coaching? Do I do one-on-one? Do I, all this stuff? Do I do social media and go the publishing route and just build a huge audience? Do I do supplements? And I took the wealth dynamics test, which, it's been around, I think 20 years. I hadn't heard of it until recently. And I took it and I was like, wow, this makes perfect sense. Like these things that I'm trying to do in internet marketing that make me tired, these don't match my personality profile. This is my personality profile. So I'm going to build a business kind of around this and then do what I can to outsource to other stuff or minimize it. And so that's been kind of the arc. I finally picked a business model I'm all in on, and I'm just focusing on one thing now instead of like 30.
That feels good, huh? That
right?
Just mental load and everything, emotional, energetic.
My gosh, man. I mean, that's the craziest thing if you're doing online marketing is that there are so many business models.
Yeah.
And there are so many people promoting each individual business model. And guess what? You could be successful at any of them. It's just what is going to fit with your lifestyle and your goals,
Yeah, man. Well, wealth dynamics, I'll have to go back to that one. I feel like I took it years ago, but yeah, I mean, there's so many of these these tests as well. And I know that's a great one. And there's a book behind it as well.
Yep.
And what's really fun, I don't know if you've done this, is plug some of your results into Chat GPT and then
Yeah.
just start, because it's knowledgeable around like at least the frameworks of these things. And then you could start prompting it with questions about whatever, business models, and like have it kind of give you a little bit more customized approach to your results.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I haven't done that yet. I didn't even think of that use. I mean, this whole AI thing is getting crazy. I mean,
It's nuts.
yeah, almost don't even know where to start, but I have used Chat GPT for a couple things. It's been interesting. Good for copywriting prompts for sure.
Exactly. And that's my usual go-to tool. But for things like this, I think it's a good extension when we're already doing something. You just want to go a little deeper.
Yep.
Hey, I want to pause this and give a quick thanks to my friend Greg Marilees and his team at Studio One Design. They're the ones that built my website over at hustleandflowchart.com. I couldn't be happier. They nailed it. It looks so professional. They basically read my mind on the vision and they executed it beautifully. I now have a perfect offer to display. It looks super clean. I've already been getting a lot of people asking all about it, and I've been referring everybody to Studio One. So they actually put together a quiz for you if you're looking to optimize your current website or build a new one. It has a full quiz that gives you a ton of results on how to improve and optimize what you're doing. So go complete that quiz at studioOneDesign.com/Joe. That is studio, the number one, design.com/Joe. It'll give you a free report after you finish that quiz. He's also giving away some cool bonuses. So go check it out at studioOneDesign.com/Joe. I want to go back to what you said about that whole top down, when really it's flipped when it comes to burnout or just, I guess, mental load, whatever it might be.
Yep.
I recently, and this like completely shifted, and I think it's exactly with what you're saying. There's a doctor from the UK called Dr. Alan Watson, not or Watkins, maybe. But he talks about, he had 2 TED Talks. And I remember very clearly, it was essentially that ascension ladder. It's like thinking, and then it goes all the way down to essentially our emotions, feelings, and then down to physiology. And, it's rooted in HRV, heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And really, once we get to that foundation level, then everything builds up from that point. And so I'm curious dig a little deeper from your perspective of that perspective that you have now after going through it. And, I'll link those videos in the show notes, but I'm curious from your perspective.
I'd be happy to. And I think this is a valuable topic for any business owner or entrepreneur or salesperson or whatever to hear, because this cost me a lot of time and a lot of money to fix before I finally figured this out. And so basically, in my previous business, I was still interested in self-help and kind of generating more willpower, having more energy and stuff. But I was trying to use all these thought models to do that. And so like change your thinking, positive thinking, reading all those kind of books and going to seminars that like motivational seminars, things of that nature. And what would happen is I'd have a buzz for 1 or 2 days after a seminar, or I'd get a couple insights from books and be really excited. And then the same pattern would repeat itself. I'd be tired and I wouldn't want to send emails back to clients, or I would get a referral and I would kind of dread meeting them, or I'd wake up tired, and the issue is that, if your body is starved of nutrients and it's poisoned by toxins, it's just not going to generate that much energy. And if your cells aren't generating energy, you're not going to have that much willpower. And there is no mental model, there's no motivational seminar, there's no book, there's no tactic that will fix that. You have to clean your house first, and then you layer on the mental models on top of that. But here in the West, especially in our entrepreneur community, we're taught the mental models first. Nothing else matters. I mean, we've all been to the seminars. I will say it's gotten better in recent years, but I remember going to Dan Kennedy seminars back in the mid to later 2000s, and you'd see these guys that are like a walking heart attack, they're 300 pounds, unhealthy, huge bellies, but, oh, hey, they're millionaires, it's like
living in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, never added up. So I felt frustrated all the time and I felt like my willpower was weak. And maybe people listening to this have experienced the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm tired all the time. Like, oh, well, my willpower is just not good enough, or like I can't finish this email queue and respond to all these people, or I can't get this product out, or I can't write this piece of copy. My willpower sucks. And so I just need to think more positively or be less negative. Well, guess what? That's a heck of a lot easier to do if you are producing more energy. And there's only two causes of low energy at the cellular level: lack of nutrients and excess toxins. And, emotions that don't serve you or beliefs that don't serve you can also be toxins, but you deal with those later after you've addressed the physical part. Most people are deficient in really basic things that are not expensive. So, iodine, zinc, copper, vitamin C, magnesium, and then vitamins A, D, and K. Those are like the 8 basic ones that you can find anywhere. And you can get most of those from food sources as well. So they're more bioavailable. So I started by addressing like the most basic shit. So like those 8 things. And a lot of entrepreneurs will, like I did originally, is I tried to cover that up. So I tried to cover up the nutrient deficiencies and the toxic overload by taking nootropics, by drinking more coffee, and that's a short-term solution. It'll work short-term, but eventually you burn yourself out. And once I addressed the nutrient deficiencies and then I detoxed, I wouldn't do it in that order today. I would detox first, then add the nutrients. And there's many different ways. There's big detoxes, there's little detoxes, there's daily detoxes. We can talk about a few of those if you'd like, but I like the simple, actionable, easy ones to do that you can just kind of do.
Yeah, of like something simple, because I'm a big fan of the micro things that can compound over time. So like, is there like a good daily or often practice?
Yeah, there is. So the easiest one to implement, I'll give you a few. These are ones that I do every day. So I take a minimum of 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day. So that is 1 teaspoon is 4,000 milligrams. Sometimes I do 8,000. Vitamin C at its core is an antitoxin. And most people don't know that, but that's how it works. So toxins in general, most of the time, are what we call electron stealers. They rob your body of electricity. And something like vitamin C is an electron donor. So they're like little battery chargers for your cells. And so certain things will run your cellular voltage down, certain things will bring them back up. Your cells fundamentally run on little tiny microcurrents of electricity. This has been known almost for 100 years now. So the ATP chemical cycle, it sits on top of the biophysics electrical cycle. So the little mitochondria, they run on electricity. So poisons, they run the voltage down, and good things, they charge it back up. It's literally that simple. So vitamin C is cheap. It's available anywhere. And it's an antitoxin. It neutralizes toxins in your bloodstream and in other areas of the body. I take a little pinch of borax. Borax is an ionic form of boron. Boron detoxes fluoride. It helps smooth out hormones, both in men and women. Then it has a few other effects, but fluoride we're exposed to pretty frequently here in the US.
Water, right? Like it's in everything, basically. I've heard San Diego too is one of the worst.
Oh, it's wretched. Yeah. So anytime you wash your hands, take a shower, if you don't have a whole house filter, drink tap water, which I hope you don't, you get a lot of fluoride. But even in tea, so it's kind of, a lot of people don't know that, but most tea plants like green tea, black tea, it preferentially pulls fluoride out of the soil, and fluoride is used as a pesticide. And so even if you get organic tea, if that soil's ever been conventionally farmed, it's pulling a lot of that out. And so you get fluoride in your tea. So, boron, it's like so cheap. You can get like a year's worth, probably like 5-year, maybe even 10 years for like $5, one of those boxes.
Yeah.
And so I do that one. And then the third one that I do every day, and this is a particular note for people who use their brains a lot, cognition, is EDTA. So EDTA is an amino acid made from vinegar, and it is really, really good at pulling heavy metals out.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So 86% of the lead that was burned during the leaded fuel days is still out in our environment. We breathe it. It's on our skin. It's in everything. Lead is an element. It does not break down once it's in the environment. It just stays where it's at. And lead reduces intelligence, makes you gain weight. It decreases circulation of blood. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but EDTA removes lead, mercury, cadmium, and a couple other metals. And that one's huge. Like people's cognition goes up, their blood flow goes up, they feel better, they look younger, their skin looks better. Like hair loss in some cases slows down or stops or reverses. A lot of people don't know that, but heavy metals can contribute a lot to hair loss. I've had just a lot of friends that know me get on EDTA and they love it. I mean, it's especially for men too. It's a really good one.
So that basically sounds like to clump all the heavy metals, right? And then it allows you to just pass it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's like a molecular cage, but more importantly than that, there are other molecular cages out there. Like we can grab a zeolite would be one. Unless you get very specific types of zeolite, because zeolite is such a strong chelator, some of them come already loaded with tons of metal, particularly aluminum. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting zeolite, you have to make sure it's one that has a lot of silica in it, negate the aluminum that it already has pulled out of the soil, right? EDTA is EDTA. It's amino acid, doesn't have any metals in it, and it pulls out like all these different metals and it aggressively chelates them. So most heavy metals are stored in our fat because they're so dangerous. The body will shunt them out of the bloodstream and put them into fat right away to kind of seal them off. And so when you take EDTA, it pulls it out of the fat pretty aggressively. Yeah. And getting back to the intelligence thing, your brain and nervous system are over 70% fat. So yes, some of it will go into your abdominal fat or whatever, but a lot of it will end up in your nervous system and it affects your cognition. And you'll see a lot of older people, especially men, the incidence of Parkinson's and MS has gone up, I think like 400 or 500% since the mid 90s in men. Whoa. And a big contributing factor to that are the accumulation of heavy metals in nervous system tissue. So it makes the nerves and muscles misfire because it's electrically conductive, right? Mm. And that's where that comes from. So EDTA, you can get a bag that'll last you a couple years for like $8.
So everything you're saying are like, okay,
yeah,
just pause, go order, and then come back.
Yeah, people overcomplicate this stuff, but metals are the most important poisons to remove. You gotta focus on those. And then fluoride, and then the vitamin C is like a really good catch-all.
Yeah. So you're taking liquid vitamin C's from the sound of it, right?
No, I just buy bulk powder, and okay. Yeah, I just take a scoop and put it in a glass of water and stir it in until it dissolves, and just take it like that.
Okay, and I'm sure that gets in your system faster anyway by doing it that way.
It does, yeah. And another thing for vitamin C, there's a study done in Germany where they put people in stressful situations. I mean, it's Germany, right? So of course the Germans are going to come up with some
let's do it. Let's do it now.
Some good experiments, but they used public speaking.
Yep.
And so they had placebo group, they had a group that did nothing, and then they had a group that they used a low dose of vitamin C on. I think it was only 2,000 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams. Mm-hmm. And vitamin C prevents cortisol. If you have excess cortisol, actually pull it out. And so if you're running a business and you're stressed all the time, you should be doing, 4, 6, 8,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, and you will feel your cortisol go down. It is one of the cheapest hacks. It takes no effort to do this, and you will literally feel less stressed.
Wow. Okay. Yep. I know what I'm doing after.
It's just such a simple, yeah. And it's so cheap. You can buy bulk vitamin C, all over the place. Just make sure you get a glyphosate-free one. So most vitamin C is made from fermented corn. It's produced by a bacteria. The problem is corn is one of the most GMO crops around. And so they spray the heck out of it. Glyphosate, the trade name is known as Roundup. And that's a big endocrine disruptor. It's really bad for your gut. And so you can get contaminated vitamin C if you go cheap. So make sure you look for a glyphosate-free vitamin C.
Perfect. How about with dopamine? in general. I think we talked about this possibly
Mhm.
before, and adrenaline, I'm sure they're somehow, I forget some of the terminology, but I know they're somehow connected there. And as entrepreneurs, I know for myself, I don't know if there's a lack of dopamine sometimes, or if like I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just curious how there's a way to manage that with business in mind and this whole feeling of like going after it. Cause I know dopamine can give you that rush feel. And, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
There,
I don't have a perfect question there, but I'm curious of your
I
thoughts.
know exactly your question because this is something that I had a dopamine challenge for years.
Okay.
Even now, sometimes I find myself slipping. So you need to remove some stuff first, and then you need to add. So this topic has been kind of talked to death, but I think it's of note. So we should mention it again. There's a concept of a dopamine fast. These social media that's available on your phone with these shorts now, especially like when you see that really engaging thumbnail and you click the video and something crazy is going to happen, like the guy's about to take his motorcycle off the ramp. You don't know what's going to happen. That's dopamine.
Yeah.
That's why you keep going through that. And so it's become, I mean, at least in the health community, sometimes people do like a 7-day dopamine fast where they're just not on any of the shorts or social media at all.
Mm.
Or some people will turn their phone to grayscale, so all the little apps don't look like candy and so engaging. Yeah. So, doing a dopamine fast off of, the short form content is a good idea. That'll allow it to naturally kind of come back. Obviously, a lot of guys, I mean, it needs to be mentioned because I've seen this explode in the health industry now, is a lot of guys have porn addiction. And at its core, it's a dopamine thing. And these guys start basic and then they get into some really crazy stuff because they don't get the same dopamine charge they did from the basic stuff anymore. And like I'm friends with a guy who coaches guys to get off of this. And like, it's crazy, like how much it affects their life. Now, once you remove those things, there's a company called Natural Stacks, and they actually make a really good supplement, and it's called dopamine. I would suggest ordering they have what they call the brain food box, and it does the 4 transmitters. So it's dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin. Mm-hmm. So acetylcholine is mental processing speed. Dopamine's drive, motivation, get it done. GABA is relaxation and sleep. And then serotonin is that feeling that all's right with the world. And the cool thing that I like about Natural Stacks is that they don't add anything to the brain. So there's 2 different types of nootropics or like brain drivers that you'll see in the market. Some of them, they take from the brain. So like cocaine, for example, is very dopaminergic. Right. So if someone does cocaine, it dumps all the dopamine in their brain at once. And so that takes from you and it takes time to recover from that. Where Natural Stacks, they're like fuel for the brain. And so they have natural components in there. Like if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I think the dopamine one may have some rhodiola and some, other good compounds in there that your body uses to make dopamine. So if you have dopamine depletion, you can take these nutrients that, in my opinion, it's just easier to just grab a Natural Stacks one because it has all of the right ingredients in the right proportions to each other. And then your brain will use it to manufacture more dopamine.
Man. Yeah, those are good, man. Because so you have like the detox and then you have this where it's almost like, okay, stack on that clean slate as much as possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The dopamine detox. I mean, the social media and short form content has gotten so engaging. Like,
oh, yeah.
Even me, like I love using YouTube for educational purposes, but they put those shorts right there and you're like, you know what? I want to see what's going to happen with this ramp, and that's dopamine.
It is, man. And there's a time and place, but it was weird. Like last couple of years, I've just been pretty good at not having the urge of going to social media for anything. I don't know, like Twitter for some reason is that thing. And now it's just like all over their feed. And then they just show you wild shit. Like it's just,
they do. Yeah.
It's whack. I mean, I don't know if that's Elon or just the world. I'm sure it's a combo of everything, but I'm like, my God, like, I don't know. Part of me loves it, but part of me is just like terrified in a way of what we're going to see on there scrolling.
really engaging one. I didn't really hang out on it much until I started tracking crypto a little bit a few years ago. And it's weird that you like almost can't control what's in your feed because it shows whatever other people like and what other people repost. And so you see all this crazy stuff. And it's very dopaminergic. Yeah. I mean, and if someone's really struggling and they've done a little bit of the dopamine detoxes, I mean, you can microdose LSD and that is dopaminergic as well. And that'll give you like linear kind of, so if you have a lot of ideas, it'll make your thinking very linear and you'll be able to get those out. And that a lot of people have a lot of success with that. Obviously it's not necessarily kosher, but
right.
I mean, people do
your own research.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just here for information. We talked a lot about, the physiology, cells and everything is energy and, it's physics. I know you say that in a lot of your stuff and it goes down to energy in your cells. If you do, fix one cell, you can fix them all.
Right.
This might take some time. Are there other things on the physiological level that you would do outside of maybe supplements, like things like breath work, cold exposure? There's a lot of things, but like, are there practices that you kind of go to that pair up with what you're talking about here?
Yeah. So to revisit what I said earlier, so you can add nutrients and you can remove toxins. So we talked about 3 daily detoxes. The thing that'll run your energy down the most are toxins. And there's basically like physical toxins and there's emotional ones. And we can talk about both. And I'll do it briefly and try to give some actionable steps here. So with the physical ones, we covered EDTA, boron as borax. You can order boron straight from a company called Hakala Labs. They're up in Wyoming, I think. And then vitamin C. So those are great daily drivers. But like, for instance, a very easy, low effort, very high impact, very inexpensive detox you can do is a liver cleanse. So a liver and gallbladder flush, and you will actually flush out physical objects called gallstones. It is wild. So our livers evolved to handle toxins that are found in the natural environment. Since World War II, over 80,000 novel chemicals have been released into our environment. That's when chemistry went crazy. It was after World War II. And so a lot of the things that we are exposed to, our body can't, because what your liver does is not a filter. It metabolizes toxins for excretion. It can't metabolize a lot of these toxins. So they get hung up in the liver. They create gallstones, which are essentially accretions of toxins. And they're physical objects. You can think of them like gravel. They are about the same size as gravel. They'll range from pea size to gravel size. Some people have huge ones. And doing a liver detox, it's 4 ingredients. They're all super inexpensive. And all you do is basically you drink malic acid, which is that's the thing in apples that make you healthy for like a week. And then you do a couple other steps that on night 6, and then you wake up the next morning and you do the flush, and all of a sudden, like, your skin will look better. You will have more energy because your digestion works better. So your liver isn't working as hard because it doesn't have to work around this, dirty gravel that was clogging it up. Your cognition will be better. Your sleep will be better because sleep is when our body detoxes. And so your liver won't have to work as hard during that. Like, if you drink alcohol, your body will process it faster and you won't get as hungover. I mean, there's the benefits are kind of endless, but it's just like a really easy, low effort, high impact detox to do. And that'll kick your energy level up a big notch. The famous infrared sauna or regular sauna, infrared's better, but
I was going to ask you because like the debate's still always happening.
Yeah.
Infrared. Okay.
Well, infrared's faster. It heats you up from the inside. It doesn't heat the air in there. And you get the additional benefit if it is a healthy infrared sauna. It's not cooking you with EMS, and they are out there. It donates energy to your cells. And so it revs up your cellular metabolism, and that helps the detox process. But yeah, you can take vitamin B3, which is niacin. And there's a certain way you take it every day. And then 3 hours after you take it, the niacin aggressively starts breaking down your fat. It's called lipolysis of fat cells. Your fat cells are where most of your toxins are stored. And so it releases the toxins, but because you're already in the sauna, then it goes in your bloodstream, you sweat them out. And the first time I did that, like where I was sitting on the towel, it had like gray and like black stuff.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it was crazy. But
Wow.
that one moved the needle for me on energy a ton. Like
I bet.
that's
Well, you're
the one.
secreting all this crap that's been
Yeah.
blocking flow of cells and energy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned like cold baths, those are awesome. They've really kind of hit their stride now. I know 5 years ago it was considered weird. Now they're kind
Yeah.
of mainstream. Those are really good for dopamine, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And those are like a form of like vagal nerve toning, which kind of helps you be more resilient to stress.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, there's another detox that also involves some vagal nerve toning that people are going to think is just absolutely crazy. I've
Love it.
done it. I've done it. It's very popular in Russia. You can go to clinics that do this. It's been researched there for 50, 60 years now. There's only one guy that talks about this in English. He's on YouTube. He's written a couple books on it. This is going to sound insane, but I'm going to tell you right now, I know that it de-aged me and it de-aged my cells. Like I felt different. I looked different afterwards. Call it dry fast. And so you don't eat or drink anything. And you do that for 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days.
Ooh.
And I know it sounds insane. I did 5 days for my first one.
Oh my God.
And here's what's wild about a dry fast. I know people listening to this, you're like, this guy's crazy. Like, what's he talking about? I want to say up front, there's over 5 decades of clinical research on this. In Russia, there have been, I think, well over 1,000 studies done on it. People have reversed incurable diseases. I mean, this is one of the only detoxes that goes down to an absolute cellular level, and it actually de-ages the cells. Like your cells have toxins inside of them. Those toxins are very hard to remove. This removes them. And a water fast is what most people consider a fast that still engages your digestion system when you're drinking water. And so on a water fast, you actually lose muscle, and your heart is a muscle. And if you water fast long enough, you actually cause heart damage. That is a fact. Few days, whatever, that's fine. But you're going to lose muscle just those few days because your body will eat the muscle for energy. It goes through a process called gluconeogenesis, where it breaks down protein to create glucose for energy. There's a complex biochemical pathway, probably has been with us for thousands of years as a part of our evolution when we went through starvation periods, where if you're doing a dry fast, you don't lose any muscle. Your body just goes in and it shreds fat. It just absolutely shreds it. And then when it's done with that, it starts shredding scar tissue. When it's done with that, it starts shredding misfolded protein, broken DNA. And when it breaks down the fat, it produces water. Mm-hmm. And so your fat releases all this water when it's shredded by the dry fast process. And so that water creates an osmotic pressure and it pushes the toxins out of the cell. So you actually, believe it or not, like my whole time I peed every day, twice a day.
So that's your fat basically squeezing all that stuff out of you.
And scar tissue. So, I have a sports background, so I've got all these scars and injuries and head injuries, and like, I broke 2 ribs and I felt this dull ache as it was going through the scar tissue and all that. And then I had a motorcycle accident. So my ankle hurt really bad where I injured it on that. And like my wrist.
Literally feel.
Yeah. My wrist surgery, like the scar flared up really red as it was going through it. So it's not for everyone, but I'm telling you, if you are interested at all, and this doesn't sound ludicrous, go on YouTube and find a guy named August Dunning.
You know how to spell that? Dunning? Oh.
Dunning. Yeah, August Dunning. Yeah, he was a NASA engineer. He was tasked with figuring out how to deal with radiation injury for a Mars mission. And basically what they found out is you can't carry enough shielding to prevent it. And there really isn't anything in modern medicine to deal with it. And then he got into the Russian research, and dry fasting actually will reverse some radiation damage. Wow. And then he started doing it himself, and his channel's really interesting because if you look at the beginning of the channel, like you kind of, when he first started posting, he looks kind of like a wreck. And then you go forward in time and he looks better and better and younger and younger. And then
so he's doing it actively.
Yeah. He does it. He does a couple 7 days a year. So you go through it, and he actually posts while he does a 7-day. And it's just like, dude, I don't know how you're doing this. And then he wrote a book called The Phoenix Protocol. And it's the only resource available in English on this. Otherwise, there's some badly translated Russian stuff, but it's hard to follow. And
Phoenix Protocol.
Yeah, the Phoenix Protocol. And there's a whole process you have to follow. It's not like you just stop eating and drinking. Like if you do that, you can end up, not having a beneficial result. You need to prep for about a week and go into it the right way. And you need to come out the right way too. But it works.
Wow. I'm gonna do some research. I'm very curious on that. Not for the fat lossage necessarily, but
yeah, I didn't need that either. I did it for the detox.
Of course.
I wanted that detox. And I had an old head injury. I had a partial scholarship in university for Olympic style Taekwondo. And I had 2 technical knockouts. So I didn't go down. I completed the fights, but I got hit so hard in the back of the head. I remember most of the fight. And I've always had that. And on day 4 of the dry fast, like that flared up and I could feel work being done back there. Oh. And there is no other therapy that will go in there and deal with like a 20-year-old or however old injury that is.
Yeah, concussion potentially or whatever happened back then. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, do your research, y'all. Don't just jump into any of this stuff. But I mean, this is why I love bringing you on the show. And there's like so many more angles that we can go down. And we got to do it again because that's what happened last time.
Yeah. And we're busy. Everyone's busy, especially nowadays. Like everyone's busy, especially entrepreneurs and business owners. And I gravitate towards the things that are really easy to implement on a day-to-day basis. A dry fast is not. That's something you're going to do around Christmas for a few days or whatever. You can even do a 24-hour one and get good results with that. But a lot of these biohacker guys, like they just go so crazy, like doing all this stuff. And it's like, if your morning routine for biohacking is an hour and a half, how are you getting anything done?
Yeah, exactly. That's like any of these. Yeah. If you have an extended morning routine and it's regimented, it's like you're probably causing more stress and, all sorts of levels.
It's consistency over time that really moves the needle in health and generating more energy. It's small, consistent actions over time. It's taking the vitamin C every day. It's taking EDTA every day. It's making sure you're getting vitamins A, D, and K. It's like little things like that. It's not like these huge, like, I used to go to Santa Monica and go to Bulletproof Labs, which was awesome. Yeah. I mean, so many cool toys in there. It's fun. But man, that was a mission, right? To do all that stuff.
And you have all this here. And that's where, like the micro actions, I do a lot of these different things. I mean, I'm going to incorporate these things that you're talking about, the different vitamins and EDTA, all these different things.
That's a good one.
Scribble of notes over here, of course, like always. When it comes to, I'm just thinking of like what you're doing in business now. So have you landed on, you said the wealth dynamics kind of gave you more or less an angle to go down. Would you recommend others to basically follow that, go check out that assessment and kind of like, is there an audit or some kind of process you took to really define, okay, this is the thing I'm going to go down? So I know now you're doing a bunch of supplements. I want to shout out some of those if they're available too.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to try to summarize this arc because I know a danger of being a podcast guest is you sit here and talk about yourself the whole time, which I'm trying to avoid. I want to provide value.
You always do.
And just help you and help whoever's listening. So my arc was interesting, and I'll just be raw with you, man. I got a little cocky and a little complacent when I made money doing what I did in the real estate business. And because I regularly attended the old GKIC, chapter meetings, I would go to internet marketing things like TNC or some of the Dan Kennedy seminars back in the day he did with Bill Glazer. I thought I knew direct response, and I did at a very basic level for a business that, frankly, the business model for what I did hasn't changed in really 100 years. And so you could get away with like really basic stuff. When I got into online marketing, dude, it was overwhelming, man. I mean, I thought I knew what I was doing, but here I am like late 30s, early 40s, whatever. And I'm having like 23-year-old kids running circles around me, just making tons of money, like internet money and doing really well with these business models I didn't understand. And, because there's systems people that are really good at systems, and there's the SEO media, and then there's the paid traffic guys that like live in spreadsheets. And I wasn't good at any of that. And I was just like, God, man, like, what do I need to get good at to do this? And I went through a zillion different business models, to generate audiences. I originally did a giveaway promotion that actually worked. And then I did a couple summits, and the summits were great. I mean, if you want to be paid to generate a list, they work really well. They are also super stressful and a ton of work. Yeah. And you're managing, in my case, dozens of people. I've interviewed way too many people for the last one, like almost 30 people. And each person did 2 interviews. So I had like 60 interviews just because of the way I structured the offer. Like if you wanted the all access pass, you got an additional video where you, like the first one was the why, the additional video was the how. And it was a great offer. It converted really well. But by the end of it, I was burnout. I was skinny fat. I was pale. I was not happy. I was like, how do people do this all the time? And then I had done supplements a little bit, and I kept having more, like the summits worked and those had some success. So I will say that it's actually kind of an awesome business model, but it is the launch model. So you have to be comfortable with that. And I no longer at this stage in my life wanted to do the launch model.
There are benefits, like you said, like if it's ever starting from beginning, it's like you can make a ton of connections with people.
Yeah.
Affiliate partners. It could become a podcast, like whatever, but like have something else in line. Don't just lean on that alone.
Yeah, exactly. And there are companies that just do them, but they have whole teams and they're super well connected, and like they're a well-oiled machine, and it's kind of risky doing them too, because you don't know who's going to promote.
True. Yeah.
You can do all that work and then no one promotes. I mean, my last one, it was like 3 people generated like 90% of the traffic,
80-20 again.
Yeah. It was just nuts. Yeah. So, I mean, that's on me too, because I picked too many doctors on that one, but so they're not marketers, but yeah. And and then I tried coaching after that. And I love like working with people and getting the results and stuff. But I noticed that I would feel tired right before I did the coaching call. And by then I had developed enough perception to know that like, hey, if certain business activity is making me tired, that's probably not the one for me. Like I didn't feel invigorated by it. I felt invigorated when I was on the call, but right before it didn't. And then there's that real-time demand. Granted that was one-on-one, but even leverage group coaching, you're still going to be, you're one to many, but you still, I mean, you got to be there in real time. You got to deliver. Right. And, so then I took the wealth dynamics test and it kicked out some interesting results. I was like, okay, this makes total sense. Like, so I'm absolutely not a systems guy at all. It was like creative. And that was mine. And and it had star in there, which I thought was interesting, which made sense why the summits worked, because I'm kind of the star of the summit, right? Like I'm the host. And then supporter was the other one. So it's like I'm the star, but I'm supporting the person I'm interviewing.
Yeah. And then you bring people together. And
then the creative part was, the summit topic and the marketing and all that. But I didn't want to go down that road. Yeah, I wanted to have a business that I could run from anywhere, that I didn't have to do in real time, and that I could run entirely off of systems. I'd had enough in my life through, the previous commercial real estate business and summits and things of doing the real time stuff and managing a lot of people. And I had previously created a program that includes a supplement called Pure Vitamin C Flush. And it teaches people how to do a vitamin C flush, which is like a type of rapid detox. you basically bring your body to full plasma saturation of C, and your body tells you exactly how much it needs. It's called a bowel tolerance number. Everyone's number is different depending on how healthy they are, how many toxins they've been exposed to, how stressed they are. And so I saw a hole in the market, and I was like, no one else is even educating people on this. I'm going to do the whole thing. The issue was glyphosate-free vitamin C. So I found a source for that, packaged it up, created an offer around it, created the info product. And that one actually did really well. And I had somebody randomly promote it. Like, I didn't even know they were going to promote it. They kind of casually mentioned like a year ago, like, oh yeah, I'd like promote that. And I never heard from him. I was like, oh, whatever.
Yep.
Looked at my computer one time and I was like, whoa, these numbers, like, where'd these numbers come from? Oh my God, I got to do all, I got to call a warehouse. We got to do all this fulfillment.
You need supplies.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was able to contact the manufacturer and get it spun up real quick because it ended up, selling a lot of units. I was like, man, and I had so much energy. Like, I was like, man, I like this. This is exciting. Like, this is giving me energy. And like, I was doing the customer service interactions and like, I enjoyed that. Believe it or not, most people don't. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to revive this other supplement I came up with that had tested well. And so I created another one based on cellular detox and recharging. It's called Biorecharge, and it's a humic and fulvic supplement. And I tested it to my own list several times. It did really, really well. It would sell out every time. And then I, fixed everything and once I proved the concept and prettied up the site and did all that. And then I had an affiliate send it out, and it did really well on there too. And I thought about the business I had and what I wanted to do and the lifestyle. I'm like, I'm all in on supplements, specifically this one, like the Biorecharge one. So that's what I'm doing. That's the business model I'm doing right now.
Right on, man. Well, what are I don't know if I have the links for the Biorecharge, but are there any quick links we could shout out? If not, I'll plug them in the show notes. Yeah,
you can go to getbiorecharge.com, and that is a traditional kind of longer form sales page where it tells you the background and what it does and what it's from and all that. That right now has that has a good offer for people on it right now. It's up to 40% off. Not trying to sell, but it's just the pricing, pricing and everything has gotten crazy with shipping and the fuel surcharges. And I use absolute tip top best humic and fulvic you can find. And so that's not cheap on the scale of supplement guys. I'm at the very top. I'm actually beyond what 99% of people pay. Wow. Most supplements in internet marketing, it's just white labeled Chinese products. That's all it is. It's just like, it's so grim.
I've been to some plants, like I've been to a really good one, Utah, but like I learned all about, it's so easy to white label stuff. So definitely if you ever buy supplements, just know that's why there's probably 1 million of them on Amazon, And
the white labeling is just brutal. And the only way that the manufacturers can run those margins and do that, because their minimum order quantities are like, you can do like 10, it's like, how can they even do that? Well, it's because ingredients are so cheap, where like I have to, with my manufacturer, it's like minimum 10K. Like I gotta write them a check or wire it. And then, like 6 weeks later, I get the product, it's like big boy stuff, I mean, that those numbers are nothing for people that are doing huge volume. But I'm just saying, when you're bootstrapping a company, it's like, that is a significant amount. But I won't compromise on the quality, because like my mom and her friends are on my list, like they take the product. I personally take it. So but that's that model. It's funny. I was back in Minnesota, where I'm from, and I was browsing through one of those Facebook groups for marketers. I think it was Alan Sultanic's group.
Okay. Yeah.
Nothing Held Back, I believe was the one. And I was like, you know what? There's guys that have been in the supplement game for decades in here. I'm just going to ask a question. And I was like, hey, people that have done both info products and supplements, like, what are the advantages you saw in having a supplement company? And the answers were really interesting. Alan's answer was quite interesting, because he said, you're selling atoms versus bits. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And he put a link to like an article that Elon Musk wrote. But I'm like, okay, cool. I read the article, but what does that really mean to you? And he said, well, if you're selling bits, so information, you are serving a psychological need, and psychological needs change all the time. And it's just harder to sell that, and it can be more fickle. If you're selling to a physical need, you're selling a physical product for a physical need. Oftentimes those needs don't change very often. So, in the health, it's energy, joint pain, and weight loss. Those are the things that sell. Those are the pain points. And if you think about it, if you have low energy, you're going to want to change that. If you want to lose weight, you're going to want to change that. If you have pain, you're going to want to change that. Those are like evergreen markets. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I found was interesting, he's like, there are a lot of supplement companies that are over 200 mil a year in revenue. There's very few publishing companies around that.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
There's a handful, there's probably the financial publishers, right? Mm-hmm. And Agora, the gorilla in the room. But I mean, outside of that, you're not really thinking of many, right? Where you can get that leverage and scale. And I noticed too, you're treated differently selling a physical product by the customers than you are an info product. I noticed it right away.
He's doing real business. He's not just a guy.
I think since COVID, there were a lot of coaches before. I think since COVID, a lot more people moved online.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's a lot more common. And I just noticed that having a physical product, my customer interactions were a lot more pleasant. Like they seemed to give me the benefit of the doubt more.
Interesting.
Whereas, I mean, I put a ton of value into all the info products and stuff, but like there's the threshold of, what am I trying to say? Like the credibility threshold is so much lower on the info products versus like on the physical products, probably because the barrier to entry is higher. Yeah. I don't know. And they understand that on some level.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've had to do way more. I mean, not to put, people in the info space and say that you're not putting a lot of work in your product and giving value, but it's a whole different game.
It's a whole different game. And I have info products, like I sell a liver detox. I have liposomal vitamin C, like how to do that. I have like a special tea called spring tea, info. Like I do that too. These days I'm using the info products to help sell the hard products.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah. So, I mean, info marketing or coaching, you got to be sophisticated unless you're doing like a really specific pain point.
Right.
And you're really good at that. So,
and it's a business, you kind of got to show up a lot to stay relevant, be on the point with the latest trends or whatever needs.
Yep.
Yeah. It goes back to like physiology. We just, if you're selling something that also equates to what you're talking about here, it's not a top down thing. You're flipping that.
Yeah. Should we go over a couple of the mistakes I made?
We can. I actually do have to jump.
Oh yeah.
And I want to keep chatting too. I'm like, dude, Theo, this was, as always, like an encyclopedia of knowledge, but very actionable, unlike an encyclopedia, of course. But, so I'm gonna shout out the different places, or I'll link everything in the show notes for everyone to find everything.
I guess I'll leave it at this. And if you're tired, it's not your fault. Don't blame your lack of willpower. Don't think you're mentally weak. Just work on the foundational stuff, which it's going to be in the show notes and whatnot. But it's only two things. It's lack of nutrients and toxins. That's it. And it's so easy to start reversing that, and you will feel a lot better, and you have more energy, and you have more willpower, and your business will do better. It's an investment in yourself is an investment in your business, particularly from an energy standpoint.
Thanks for sharing this, brother. And thanks for doing so much research, independent research, because you go deeper than anyone I know. So.
I love it though, man. It's my hobby. I love it. So
keep doing your thing and publishing. And there's also, on your website, I'll link to it, but you have some other things, around 5G and EMF.
Yep.
I mean, it's all very fascinating, and just understand it's all rooted in a ton of research. And I know you're testing on yourself as well all the time.
Constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So appreciate you, brother. We'll do another round. It's like round 20 or something.
Sounds good. See ya.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others the way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.